Hello, Diane. I just want to thank you so much
Oh,
while the other girls
sure.
get here for joining
Yeah.
me tonight and the rest of us. It's just such a pleasure to meet you. My Fraser story is long and we just have been impacted so much. I wish we were hugging instead of zooming in the night.
And I would give you a big hug because I'm a
Yeah.
hugger, and I think we need more of that in this world. Tell you what.
Yeah.
Welcome to Talk Like a Mother Parenting Autism Podcast. We are Jen, Kim, Rachel, and Jamie. Take a seat at our table as we share with hope, humor, and honesty.
Hey everyone, today we have a guest that I am so excited and proud to have on. Hi Diane. Hey
Hi,
lady.
Rachel and team. How are you all? Good to
Hi.
see you.
Diane is so special to our family because she is the president and CEO of Fraser. As many of our listeners know, Fraser has touched our lives personally in so many ways, from the first diagnosis of Seeley to understanding more about her mental health to being able to go to a Twins game and get a sensory bag. In fact, I believe that the sensory room within the Mall of America was even connected with Fraser. So we just had a rescue moment there.
I've actually been there.
Yes.
Look at that. I've been
Yes.
in that room.
Yes. So
Yes.
I wanted to sort of tell our listeners a little bit more about Diane and about Fraser in particular. But we are just so excited to tell our listeners about what it's like to live in a community that's supported by a company that has such a big heart, from like babies to aging out and aging through and aging population. I just
Yeah.
think it's so important for people to know what could be.
Yes.
As president and CEO of Fraser, Diane's work sets the strategic vision and course for Fraser, one of the largest nonprofits in the state of Minnesota. The organization has a budget close to 140 million and 1,700 staff who serve 15,000 clients each year across their 64 locations. I'm like, oh, chills. Fraser is the largest and most experienced provider of autism, mental health, and disability services in Minnesota. As a nonprofit, Fraser provides specialty healthcare, housing, education, and community support services to thousands of children and adults with diverse needs and their families. Prior to serving at Fraser, Diane held the position of Director of Medical Rehab and Education at Courage Kenny Rehabilitation Center. And prior to that, she was a gifted, beautiful, and passionate SLP. Diane's work with Fraser has just been so impactful, and it's Diane has been at the top since we've been in the
Yeah.
loving arms of the company. So I just am so grateful to have you here.
Well, thank
Before we go on, I think it's amazing you were an SLP because I think that brings
you.
something to it
Thank
that
you.
someone that's just hired for the position, you know what I mean, just off a resume with whatever. I think it's
Yeah.
so important when you've done the work with the children and you understand that side of it, kind of
Yes.
like a special educator teacher becoming a principal. You know,
Yes.
that kind of stuff. So I
Thank
just
you
love
for
that.
saying that.
Sorry, carry on.
Well,
I
and
think it's great.
I have to tell you, my first client out of grad school was a little girl with autism at Courage Center. And that was 40 years ago.
I love that.
And she was just a little beauty. I mean, back then, she showed up in her little ballet dress and her
Oh,
little slippers, and she was nonverbal. And she was such a joy to work with. So yeah, I get
wow.
that part. I get that.
I
There,
just love
yeah.
Diane. There was a time in the podcast life where we were five moms and four of us had a girl on the spectrum. And I'm telling
Oh,
you, to hear about a girl on the spectrum 40 years ago getting
yes.
SLP services in Minnesota makes me want to cry and hooray at the same time.
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
There weren't many, as you know, the diagnosis back, the prevalence was 1 in 10,000. So very, very little recognition of autism. Uh,
Yeah.
but this little girl was so nonverbal that there wasn't a doubt that she had autism, and she had some real severe behavioral issues. I'd love to know what she's doing today. Maybe I should find that out.
Me
That's
too. Let's look her
amazing.
up.
She's highly successful doing something.
I'm certain she is. And there's probably a tired mom behind her.
Yes, that's
Girl.
probably true. That's probably
Now, I have kind of introduced you for our listeners, but if you are new to the podcast, I should tell you that we are four super exhausted, really excited moms to talk about our kids. Autism is what brought us together. In 2020, we met in an online support group after services were sort of like torn out of our homes and lives. And we really leaned on one another to sort of figure out a way through, as so many services were trying to figure out their own way through. Um, through that friendship of like Trial by Fire, the podcast was born. We've really spent the last 3 years creating a resource that we wish we had had access to, whether you're in this country or another, or in a rural spot or a more urban area. Diane, I would love for you to tell our listeners a little bit about the range of services that Fraser offers now.
Sure. And as I said in the beginning, usually on a podcast, I just talk, but this is so poignant, these questions, that I don't want to miss any facts. So what I would like to say, first of all, is that our mission is building a community of inclusion that allows people to belong and thrive. And we're proud of the diversity of our staff. We have a very diverse staff. And we operate, really think of us as two divisions. We have community inclusion. A lot of people don't know this, but we have housing. And by housing, I mean the whole range of housing services. So we have group homes for individuals that need maybe round-the-clock nursing or other services, all the way to independent living in our apartment buildings, and in between that, a supported living model in apartment buildings. Because as these kids have gotten older and got to be young adults, they need supported housing. And we're able to offer that. We also have competitive employment, because again, as these children have grown up and they want jobs and they deserve jobs, well, we can help them with that and we can support that initiative. And then case management, early childhood education, which is the Fraser School, which is what, the foundation of Fraser is known for. And then our sensory inclusion and community training, which we've talked a little bit about. We actually are at the state fair. I'm not, but staff are staffing the state fair building. Yes. It is an inclusive building at the state fair that was graciously supported by Central Roofing. So we're really reaching out into the community and doing as much as we can to make sure that everyone recognizes that you can be inclusive. It's not that hard. Open your doors to others and give individuals with different learning needs a chance to experience the same things that everybody else does. So that's what we're trying to do with our sensory inclusion. And then our specialty healthcare division, as you all know, does assessments, intervention, care coordination, and other support services. And people think of us as autism, but we do so much more than autism. We do services from birth to seniors. And we also serve individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities and complex disabilities. And we believe that comprehensive services are the way to go, that when you've seen one child with autism, you've seen one child with autism. Right. Every child and family needs something different. And so my heart breaks when I see some of these providers providing one service, right? And then I always say, if all you have is a hammer, everything's a nail. So we believe in really tailor-making services to the individual needs of our clients. We think that in their families. I'll give you an example. We had a little girl that last week came in and she wasn't eating. Her parents were worried about her autism, but we were more worried about her nutrition and not eating. So we figured if we could get her feeding and eating first. So we put her in our specialty healthcare feeding program, working with an OT and speech pathologist, and she's now eating. And that just took the stress off of that family so that we could work on other things with her, other skills with her. But eating was a priority. But you can't do that if you're just looking, not at the whole family and the whole situation that the child is bringing forth, and knowing that every child is different. Every child's an individual, and building on those strengths that those kids have and the strengths of their families and what their families want and desire is what we try to do. So I always say, yes, we're the professionals, but in the real world, it really is the families that know best. They know what their children need. They just need the resources to be able to access those services.
I will say, just thinking about this hammer and then everything has to be a nail idea. We, in particular, my family has called Fraser for a diagnosis. We called to make the appointment. We did the assessments. We did all the stuff. We got her diagnosed. And at the time it was autism, ADHD. And then they really talked to us about Seeley's sensory processing disorder, sort of profile and sensory needs. Later, when things got more complicated and we needed more help, we came to Fraser and said, what what is happening? And immediately we talked about anxiety and did assessments for this and depression. And
Yep.
later, when Seeley was diagnosed with bipolar at only 6, Fraser did
Yeah.
what they did in an FBA, which is for other listeners, a functional behavioral analysis, because we were in a real lurch with her. We could not get safe. And an FBA is really sort of tracking data to figure out patterns. And within the outcome of that, they not only validated us, but like described, hey, what you're looking at is this. These are the things that we could do now. These are the things that you can look out for later. This is what it will develop to. This is what medication you could discuss with your doctor. Like, it was so all encompassing.
Right.
And even though I had called to be like, what in the Sam hell is happening? Your team really helped to figure it out, to navigate. So like, even if you were calling your organization and asking for the wrong thing, you will get down to what's the best outcome.
Right. Thank
And
you.
I just
You said
cannot
that much
say,
better than I could. Thank
oh,
you.
I just can't say how important that is, because a lot of times you just go, you say what you think you need to, and
Mhm.
you end up no further down the road, you know?
Well, here's some exciting news. So in March, it was announced that we're now a certified community behavioral health center. So there are only 500 of these in the country,
Mhm.
and we're one of the largest. And what it allows us to do, it allows us to add so many more services. So we're adding psychiatry. I'm so
Yay.
happy. We're adding
Get me on the list.
med management.
Yeah.
We're adding substance abuse, because as we're seeing again, our young people, become adolescents. Some of them, become addicted
Mhm.
to different drugs, and we want to make sure that they have the resources they need to combat that. So
Yeah.
we're going to specialize in that with our population of the people that we serve. We're adding peer specialists, which means parents who have had life experience can actually work for us and actually, bring that life experience to the other parents, just like you're doing in this group, so that you can help others through the
Yeah.
CCBC. That never was allowed in the past, because the state and the federal government said, no, you have to be a licensed clinician. No, there is great value in what parents can bring, their perspective, their life experience. So we have a whole board now called our CCBHC Behavioral Health Board that actually is made up of not only doctors, but a lot of parents with life experience, so that they can guide us in this new method.
That reminds me a lot. I didn't mean to cut
No,
you off, but that
no.
reminds me so much of NAMI and how
Yeah.
using your lived experience can alter
Yes.
the list of things, because
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
with your soul what needs to happen.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
parents want to hear from other parents. They don't always want to hear from a professional that you look at and you go, well, how would you know what my life is like? You've never experienced this. So
Yeah.
this is going to be able to bring that perspective to our whole treatment program. And we're so excited about this.
Oh, I
And
love that.
two really important things. When I was working at Courage Center, and as you'll notice this in hospitals, docs and medical professionals in rehab are used to team care. Meaning it's not just everything doesn't fall on one therapist. It's a team approach. Well, that's always been a no-no for mental health. Mental health practitioners historically have always worked in silos. It's like, we can't talk about this with anyone else. We're now allowed to make that go away. This is going to be this is going to transform the way we deliver mental health, because we're now putting together pods of teams that will work with parents, including the parent and the family. And a case manager will be assigned to every single family. So they're going to be able to work with the clinicians and the school districts and the doctors and do an integrated care model. Because again, you can't separate the mental health from the physical health. They go together. So we have to look at the whole picture of this family, and this new certification is going to allow us to do this. So I have to just brag about this for a second. We applied federally. Of course, the application was this deep. 800 pages. We've been working on this for 8 years to get this certification. And the federal government gave us a startup grant of $4 million. to be
Yeah.
able to get this off the ground. So we are just, I mean, I'm beside the moon on being able to announce this because it really is going to transform the way care is delivered.
I mean, literally, Jamie almost jumped through the computer from Denver because we have talked about these silos that
Yes.
we have had to jump like lily pads from place to place. Nobody speaks. They don't use the same paperwork.
Correct.
We have talked more about a commune to just solve that very problem ourselves than had faith that anybody could, because it really is cultural.
Oh, it is. Yep.
It is. It's school being separate from medicine, being separate
Absolutely.
from
No. It needs to be weaved together.
yeah.
And so that's what we're going to attempting to do with this new model of care. Now, it also will improve access because as your listeners know, Fraser's, because of who we are, we've had a long waiting list. Well, this is going to enable us to get clients in faster. I can't promise yet how fast because we're just now initiating this, but our pledge is to get people in faster, and other CCBHCs have been able to show that they've been able to do that. So that's my hope, is we're going to be able to speed up the process.
So I was going to ask about adding to the team.
Yes.
So how many people are you going to have to hire? Because I assume the demand is going to grow.
Yes.
And we know how hard it is to keep and find a therapist as it is. Now, I can't speak for Fraser, but in general, there's always a turnover kind of thing. So my thought to that is, where do you find these people?
Well, we're out. But I'll be honest with you. I'm in restaurants and I have a nice person that waits on the table, and I'll ask them if they want to come work for Fraser. And some of them, to be honest with you, are in school for social workers, psychology, even. It's perfect. I'll bet
you know what?
I've hired.
I kind of love that. I kind of love that because you're kind of getting their personality. And I always joke that I'm like, listen, if Starbucks can remember and order like a Rachel Flanagan's, they deserve a shot at anything.
That's right. That is so true. So I think Colorado does have one CCBHC, if I remember. I don't know if they serve our population. We're kind of unique, but they do have a CCBHC, I think.
We have a place, it used to be at a different name, but I would say, I think it takes like the fear out for a lot of parents of having to go so many different places. And I would love for my son's like ABA therapist to introduce him to a speech therapist. Like, I just think that's so great. Some places, and I don't want to name names because things might have changed, but they might do speech, ABA, and occupational therapy, but it's very siloed still within the organization. So it's like, you're not going there and your kid, I would say with ABA, your speech therapist can come visit them in ABA and do that, but they're not collaborating together. It's not effort. It's like,
it's not good for anyone. That doesn't. The other thing I'll mention, and I don't want to go through the list, but we have 33 different services. So I count ABA as one service. So now back up and realize Fraser has 33 different services for individuals with autism, which ABA is only one. Because again, we believe that every child, ABA isn't right for every child.
No.
There are kids who our day treatment model works much better. We get them socializing, we get them back in the schools. I mean, we work with their community. It's a whole different model of care than ABA, but it gets great results for those kids who don't need, it's a step down model, who really don't need that intense one-on-one ABA. Although we offer ABA, don't get me wrong, but we don't believe it's the only thing you should be doing for families.
And it gets in especially here, it gets kind of tricky where it just becomes run by corporations and it's kind of becomes a money grab. And so you have to really vet every place you try for. So something like that, where you guys, that's your point, is to like get the kids back to back in school or wherever they need to be. I think is so cool, instead of just being like, well, bring your kid here every day.
Forever. It shouldn't be a school replacement program. That's not how things should work, because then they miss their education.
When you have 33 different services, even though you have criteria for each person to meet that need, right? Or to need that program, that means that you're never going to age out of help. That means that maybe ABA isn't the service now, but now you're in school age and you need this sort of support. Now we're coming to school and so on and so forth. I can tell you that when, I've had the exposure of like a mom with Seeley at Fraser, but when Billy started working for the company and he's telling me about the apartments and, these different group homes, and we've toured group homes because we're in a complicated place with our daughter, and to know that there's just so much more than what we knew.
Yes.
Gives me hope that it's not just that we're on our own because we've aged out of or we've gotten too complicated for all the other things.
No, we do lifelong services. I mean, we even do hospice care in some of our group homes for individuals, elderly and very severely involved. But what I will say, one of the, Jen, you asked me, how do we recruit people? Well, one of the things I've been saying just right out of the gate is we're not for profit. And so I tell these young individuals, I'm for profits. My husband has been CEO of for profit. So don't get me wrong, but I believe that not-for-profits do a better job providing direct care than for-profits. We're not in it so that the owners make the money and can live, wherever they want to live and drive their cars and have their 3 or 4 houses. We're in it so that the money goes back to client services.
Right.
We pay competitive wages, but the profits don't go to owners and shareholders.
Right.
They go right back into serving the community. And that is the big difference between for-profits and not-for-profits. So I always tell the staff, but today I even asked a group of new interns, I said, how many of you know the difference between a for-profit and not-for-profit? Not one of them knew what I just said. So get the word out. If you really want to make a big difference and meaningful difference in people's lives, yes, you can do the work for a for-profit, but for a not-for-profit. But just think of how much more your work is going to be meaningful in terms of making impact on the community, because the profits we make go to serve more people.
As a parent, what that all equates to is that my therapist at Fraser versus another therapist at a Twin Cities company, the Fraser employee has a higher likelihood of having advanced training and knowing how broad EIDBI could be for my daughter, or so on and so forth. Like there's just such a feed into the value of education and your people, and making an SLP the CEO. Like there's a path to that. Whereas I'm not getting like she's been here for 30 days. She'll be here for 95 more therapist for my daughter. I don't have time for that.
Yeah,
like,
I know.
I don't. Yeah.
And I'm not saying there aren't great for-profits out there, but I'm just saying people need to be more aware that when someone comes to Fraser, the fact that you chose us allows us to serve more people because we're billing that service. And as a result of that, we then can maximize that income and serve another person as a result of you choosing Fraser. So that to me is also an added benefit of working with a nonprofit like us.
So are your group homes, so they go in stages of, like you explained, different levels of care or whatever?
Yes.
And not what, different levels of care that they provide. But I would assume that they'd be pretty hard to get into because it's like you get that golden spot.
Are we ready for this? We have 6 openings right now.
Wow.
Not
really?
People know.
You have room for my kid.
You should call up. I'm serious, Rachel. Really, seriously. Here's the thing. We don't talk much about we should talk more about them. We don't talk enough about them. And we need to do more of that. Way back when they were founded, they were called Neural Humphrey Residences after the Humphreys. And it was 3 large 12-person group homes. And the state, when I came on board, said we had to close those because they were too big. So we went to these smaller 4-person settings. And now we have 23 of those. We actually do have 6 openings right now in different houses. And then the next step up is for individuals that can live somewhat independently. They have a job, but they just need someone on site to help them with meals or to help them talk to them about their, budgeting, or they come home with something they're not sure about. And there's like a counselor on staff that's there for them. And then the third model, we own our own buildings. We own 5 apartment buildings. Fraser owns these. And those are for pure independent living. All we do is we're there with a phone call away. And if they need us, these residents live independently. They work in the community. They pay the rent. It's a whole different model of care, total independent living. So it's that whole continuum that we're able to offer. And I don't know of another agency that does the whole continuum, because you can imagine what happens. Someone goes into that independent living apartment, they can live independently, and all of a sudden they turn 50 or 60 and they need more help. Then they can move into the step down model. They can move into another apartment with a swimming pool and a workout room and beautiful buildings. where they can be in that model. And then if they get more severe later in life, they can move into one of our group homes. So we have this beautiful model continuum of care. So families don't have to worry that when they pass away, that their son and daughter won't be taken care of.
Yeah.
That's
That is remarkable, really.
So amazing.
The range of it.
Every parent's biggest
Yeah.
concern. And not even thinking when they're 50. I mean, there's such a drop off when they turn 18 or 21. Like,
that's true too.
that's amazing. Is that all, like, are all your groups homes for adults?
They're all adults. They're all adults. We used to do children, and then the children aged up to adults. So the ones we had for children are now all adults. We've talked about doing group homes for younger children, but here's what we've discovered. If parents get the right supports in their home, and we do have in-home supports as well, then these kids can remain home for a longer period of time. So that's the other model of care that we have.
That's also like Colorado, that's really big here, is in-home supports, and it's great. Like, literally someone will drive up to your house, and it's wonderful. Parents need to learn in the home.
Well, exactly. And I always said, as a speech pathologist, when I practiced, an audiologist, that if the parents weren't helping carry through what my work in an hour is not, right? I mean, the parents really end up being the therapist because they're having to carry through those skills throughout the rest of the day, which is great. Maximizes my work. Let's put it that way.
That's right.
That's got to be an SLP thing, thinking as well, I think. Because Kaya's SLP that we had for many, many years, and I'm probably not going to pronounce it correctly, but we did the Hanon program, and it's that
I love the hand.
Yes, you learn to talk to your child, not at your child.
Yes.
And not for your child, that whole program. And I remember Jackie saying to me, you need to do the work at home. This falls on you, because I only have her an hour a week. This is on you to do it. And I was like, resentful, like, what do you mean I have to do this? You know what I mean? So you said that, and I was like, I've heard that before.
Right.
That's an
And now
SLP
she's
thing.
Nearly 15 years in, and she is doing the work. We are all doing the work.
I know you're all. No, I just have to say something. I don't think people who haven't had a child that has special needs of any kind know what it's like. I really don't. And the fact that you all every day get up and want the best for your children and will do whatever it takes to make sure they get the best is just, this is what these kids need. The children that fail, I'll tell you this from personal experience in life, are ones their parents abandon them. They give up on them. And not giving up on your children is so key to making them successful.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that brings me so beautifully into our second question. I'm sorry that these are so involved, Diane. You could have been like, we'll pick two. But one of the most heartwarming parts of, and like that gets right to the root of things for me, is that within the Fraser origin story, there is a mom on a mission. Now, we've heard about a mom of two boys that lives in Minnesota, who's an SLP, who is now acting as CEO. But before you and before your predecessor, can you tell us a little bit about how Fraser started?
Yes. So Mrs. Fraser, and I'll try to make this somewhat short because I could talk about Mrs. Fraser for hours.
Yes.
But I follow in her footsteps, so I'm very reverent to the legacy that she's left us. She started Fraser in 1935. She was a teacher herself, and she had a daughter who was misdiagnosed as intellectually disabled. She actually was hearing impaired, but they couldn't do differential diagnosis there. So they thought she was the old word, which we refuse to use anymore, which is terrible, mental retardation. It's now intellectual disability. So they thought she had an intellectual disability. She was really severely hearing impaired. So every doctor and every place she went to, they said, give her up. That's what we do with these children. You know, this is a defective child. You place that child in an institution with adults and everyone else, and they'll feed her and, you know, take care of her basic needs, and that's it. She's not worth taking care of. That's the message Mrs. Fraser got. Yeah. And so she started a small school in her home because she was a teacher. And of course, kids started coming out of the woodwork because no parent wanted to put their child in an institution.
Yeah.
So but because of the attitudes about disability, she was asked to leave that house. So she mortgaged that house, went to another home, asked to leave that neighborhood. One story goes that
because her yard was filling up with all these beautiful children making the sounds that all of our beautiful children make and whatever.
Correct. Causing disturbances or whatever. So anyway, she ended up then at Fraser School, starting Fraser School and serving a lot more children. And in the meantime, her husband was shot in the line of duty, shutting down a moonshine operation in St. Paul. She lost her daughter to pneumonia, and her other little boy son fell out of the car and died because they weren't wearing seatbelts. This was during the Great Depression. Now, talk about a woman who, has seen it all, done it all, and put her, unlike, I love the fact that there are nonprofits in the Twin Cities that were developed by wealthy family members who wanted to give back to the community. I think that's great. We came out of abject poverty. Mrs. Fraser had nothing, and she gave up everything for these families.
And she kept showing up after tragedy and struggle and countless. Yeah.
And I remember one of the quotes that I gave in one of her lectures was, they criticized me for trying to feed the animals and treat the animals. They called them animals. I mean, what? I mean, are you kidding me? What a terrible thing. And I will say this today, there's still discrimination with adults with disabilities, still to this day. I still walk into a grocery store and I'm nice about it because I give them Cal, but I'll see a little boy or something pulling groceries off the shelf and I'll see these people standing there like, don't you know how to discipline your child or take care of your child? And I have to say, you don't know what's going on with this family and this child.
Yeah.
You don't know this. This is really good parenting you're seeing right here. So,
if you could meet me at Target tomorrow at 5 p.m., I'll come to yours.
I was like, ma'am, you need to be out on the road with Mr. Walls promoting this stuff because this is good stuff that not every community has, by the way. This is good stuff.
Well, thank you, Jen. Thank you. So anyway, she was an amazing woman. And today Fraser stands, when I took over, Fraser had 52 staff. We were in 3 sites and we didn't make payroll the first week I was there. There wasn't any money.
What a turnaround.
So it was like gasp, and more gasp. I actually slept in my office for the first year that I was there. We also all took turns, the Fraser school staff and myself, cleaning the toilets, cleaning the building, because we couldn't afford I had to say goodbye to the janitor. We couldn't afford him. We also spent our time delivering milk because the milkman was overcharging us, I felt, for a nonprofit. And I had to say, I can't afford you. I'll deliver the milk myself. So we did everything to keep that program alive and well. And then about 25 years ago, I got a call from children's hospitals and clinics that said, we want to know if Fraser wants our autism program. So I went to the board of directors and said, this is a need in the community. We should take this on. Now, at that time, they were serving about 60 children with autism. And I said, we need to take this on. Of course, the board, wise that they are, said, Diane, how are we going to do this? We can barely keep this organization alive. And I said, we have to see these kids. They need us so much. And there's no other program for them in the state. There was no autism program in the state of Minnesota at that time.
Yeah.
I think one maybe ABA provider, one individual, but really nothing to speak of. So we took that program on, and then today you can see it's been the hallmark of much of our work is around neurodiversity and autism. So
we are just so grateful for the impact because, the girls have all listened. Like, yes, there are wait lists, or yes, there's this or that, but like my daughter has a fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. She has autism. She is verbal. She is a girl. She is busy as hell. She is like, her mental health alone could stand in a center for care.
Sure.
The fact that we get to live in a Minnesota that has been supported by your company for so long has made every bit of difference. I mean, it really is the twins game. It's everywhere. It's all the staff that you've trained, whether they say, or it's been 20 years and they've opened clinics, like it's just such an impact. I wanted to ask you, what are things that we have in Minnesota that you wish other states or more states offered? Because our listeners are from everywhere.
Rachel, I will tell you this. I do think we're blessed to have a Fraser because I don't know of another Fraser in any other state that's
Yeah.
doing what we're doing, not the comprehensive nature of what we do. Some do different pieces, but not the whole comprehensive nature. I'm from rural Ohio myself, and so I get the fact of lack of services.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking. You know, these kids don't transport well, and
Mm.
they need families need convenience. So our vision has been no one will travel more than 35 miles, 35 minutes to access Fraser services. So that's why we're trying to open centers in other parts of the state of Minnesota, so
Right.
that people don't have to come to the Twin Cities always for care. And we opened a site in St. Cloud. We're looking at Mankato, Rochester. So we're on the move, trying to
Yeah.
make the difference across the state in Minnesota. The other thing I'll say is Minnesotans are so generous. I don't know where it comes from. Even if you're not from Minnesota, you move here and you're willing to write checks to nonprofits that you believe in.
Mm.
And so donated money is greater in Minnesota than I think it is in most states for that, because of that attitude. And as a nonprofit, we rely on donations as well. So having access to donations makes a big difference in the numbers we can serve and how fast we can get those kids off the wait list. So in Ohio, as give you an example where I'm from, if someone writes a $25 check, they feel like they're giving you their life savings. And
Yeah.
not that $25 isn't important. It really is. Every dollar is important, but very hard to raise money in some of those states to be able to provide services like Fraser. So we're really blessed that the state of Minnesota and the health plans and donors have stepped up, and parents who believe in us to help us with this mission, because we can't do it alone.
Well, and the donations aren't just commas flying in out of checkbooks. It's the
Yes.
house that I need my daughter to live in that someone can support. I mean, there's so many things that can impact your organization and do and have, right?
I agree. And then I would say lastly, the stigma of mental health is less, of issues of mental health is less in Minnesota. I mean, because of NAMI and other organizations that have done great advocacy work, individuals in Minnesota see their mental health issue just like their physical health issue. You know, they have diabetes, well, and I also have anxiety disorder. They don't see it as, oh my heavens, don't tell anyone I have a mental health issue. I mean, that is gone away. That is passé in Minnesota. That is not true in other parts of this country. I've been around, and I know for a fact that people are still of the mindset, pull yourself up by your bootstraps if you have an anxiety disorder. You know, knock yourself out of that depression. If you're depressed, go for a walk. You know, I mean, it's nonsensical, but it has changed dramatically in Minnesota. And I'm hoping the rest of the country can pick up on those changes and embrace that, because we cannot stigmatize these children.
Yeah. And it's so easy for so many too.
Yep, it is. So those would be the things. We have had parents move here from other states. Amazing that it is.
I grew up
to get Fraser services.
I actually grew up in Roseville, and Billy and I lived in Montana for some time. We moved back to the Twin Cities. We actually lived in Osceola, Wisconsin when Celie was diagnosed. And we moved within the month to be able to be closer to Fraser Woodbury.
Yes.
Because I can't do a car. So we needed to be that close. And we were within a mile and a half when we picked the townhome that we did. It's so important for us.
Well, that's fantastic.
Get her help, you know?
Well, and I will say this to you all, and I parents that are listening, we're not perfect. Sometimes a parent, and I understand them, will be upset with us for something, either a wait list, they didn't get a call back, or any of numerous things. And I understand they're under stress, but they do need to know there are rules and regs that we have to follow that we don't even maybe agree with, but that's what the state tells, we have to do this. Or the payer will say, well, we won't let you do this. You have to do it this way. So a lot of the way we have to operate, we don't get to choose. We're told how to operate. If we took all private pay, that might be different. But because we rely on insurance and medical assistance, we have to follow those rules. And we're perfectly compliant following those rules, but I know it upsets families sometimes because they don't understand why we have to do something a certain way. I may not always understand it either, but I know it's the rule, and we're very compliant. We follow all rules. always.
That's really where that position that you were telling us about at the beginning, Diane, makes such a difference. Because for a mom to say that message versus some clinician that feels like it's just a billing thing and your kid doesn't matter, versus a mom that's like, every single thing that you get is based on minutes for the rest of their life ever.
That's true.
Like, it's true.
2 minutes, 2 minutes. Yes. All the documents. I mean, I've been on a lot of healthcare boards, and I have a lot of physician family members. And these docs didn't go to school for all this medical record documentation, all the rules and regs. And so many of them are burning out, and I worry about them because it's more and more and more and more and less patient care. And finding that balance is what we need to do. And I think the CCBHC is going to allow us to do both. It's going to allow us to meet those quality conditions and those rules and regs, but at the same time, use individuals to really maximize the delivery they offer our clients and the quality. So it's going to be the best of both worlds once we get this program up and running.
The fact that you follow everybody through life is amazing, though. I think that is something that is unique, because I live in Massachusetts. There's great services for children, but like once they're 22, it's like there's just this huge drop and almost like a huge divide on what type of services they do offer. They kind of get like lost in this like shuffle.
That's so terrible. I mean, it is, because kids become adults and they need that support throughout their lifetime. And it may not be a lot of support for some. It's just a check-in once a week. We still have families who, with their adolescents, check in with us, call us and just check in, just checking in. Johnny's doing great. He's working for General Mills, or he's working in the Lund's grocery store, or whatever. I mean, it's that kind of support that we want to continue to offer. And then I will tell you this, our community employment program is fantastic. We've helped individuals that could not find a job, find a job. We've helped individuals who could not get into college, get into college. We really have a robust, boutique, very specialized program. And the reason why it works so well is that many day programs and employment programs don't recognize the mental health aspect. They just think the individual needs a job. No, you can't just plug someone in. You have to realize that for some individuals, the HR department needs to know that the lights are going to trigger a meltdown. I mean, it's those kinds of things.
Please run for Congress. Please, lady, you have, I don't mean that this is beneath you, but you have some things to say, ma'am.
Oh, you sweetie.
Like,
well, you're kind people to talk to.
Incredible stuff here that you're saying.
Diane, we're like on our 220th episode or something, something by the time this thing airs, and I'm maybe more, I don't know. And for all of those, we have mentioned one of the needs that you have described giving our community today. Every single episode, whether it's been kids grow to adults, damn it, or like, you cannot allow me to age. You can't call me a walking crisis and then not help me.
Correct.
Like, everything that you guys are and where you're going is the stuff of our dream.
Well, how do we, ladies, let me ask you, let me challenge you with this. It's fine what we have in Minnesota, but how do we get the rest of you help?
Right.
What does that look like?
Wondering.
No, how do we do that? And go ahead.
I feel so strongly that it's about sharing sort of the business plan and this grassroots pack of 10 moms in a certain city that just bulldogs the thing until they have a checking account to open the clinic. And if that was provided to city after city, it could be replicated. The thing is when the numbers, like, just since my daughter has been diagnosed, she's only 9, she was diagnosed at 4. In those 5 years, the numbers have crazy change.
1 in 34. Yep.
Right. Now, that means that there's 1 in 34 moms that knows the thing that we're doing, that 1 in 34 dads that knows this struggle. There's siblings, there's one-time providers, there's all these sorts of people that are being impacted and they have no way to know how to do better. So maybe it's in like Georgia and there's some shit old ABA, and maybe there's no SLP in all of Indiana over in this corner. Like, if there was a map to show the pack of 10 moms in all these different corners, how to do it, what to say, and what grants to sign up for, I really think that it could be Fraser pockets everywhere. And just sharing the network and showing that you can do this damn thing without all the silos.
Right.
That's what
It's
I was
just
going to say.
showing
I mean,
someone.
I don't even know if it could. I mean, honestly, as a mom myself right now, I mean, we're at 9 years old, and maybe I'll have more energy when my son's 18 or 20, but I might be in paperwork hell then trying to figure out what to do next when he's an adult. But like, so for me, I don't personally even know it's the parents. I mean, I think it's the parents advocating, and parents even like, I heard of Fraser. We have friends. I mean, I've obviously Rachel in Minnesota, but we have other friends in Minnesota have heard of Fraser, but I didn't even know all of this, you guys. I just recently found out from each of you guys do the group homes. And I just think that's so amazing. And I don't think people know places like that exist at all. And I mean, I don't know if it's like through legislation, or if, you know, if you guys make a beautiful Fraser video about everything you do, that people could go to their local Congress people and be like,
And
look
demand
what
that.
exists.
That's an idea.
Like,
That's
look what
okay.
could exist for this population. And in Colorado, we have pretty good waivers and services here. And so there, we have a high population of people, especially with autism, but with other disabilities, because we do offer so much. People move here specifically for that. And I'm like, I would love for people to know that like something like this exists. And, you know, like even here, it's like you have to find the right person to tell you this is
And
how you
say
get
the
on
right
the
thing.
waiver. And, you know, we're on the waiver we're on now
It's like-
because a lady told me, she's like, get on that waiver while he's young,
Yeah,
because transferring to an adult waiver will be so much easier. Just, I mean, I know waivers and stuff is different, but there's so many of these secrets.
Yeah.
It's like the services are there, but if you don't know about them, you don't know about them. Do you know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
It's like,
Right.
it's like they're not readily that's how it is here, especially with adult services. Like it's changing a little bit, but like my daughter's 28, so it's like we're ahead of the curve where there wasn't waivers, like that wasn't a thing. Now it's a thing. So it's like she's in this weird like little bracket where she's kind of missed a lot of the things that have come up. She is in a day program, but like she's nonverbal. She's has severe autism, so there's not a lot of space for her. Like they do have a lot of programs that get you that help with jobs, that help with housing, that you know have different supports, but like she doesn't fit into those categories. So when she turned 22, it was almost like just a number. It didn't matter, but she lost everything that she had prior to that she needed to help her like reach her potential. And now there's just no access for it at all. Even the doctors are like, yeah, bye. And I'm like, okay, where do we go now? They're like, yeah, we don't know. And it's so there's no doctors that take over. Like her neurologist is like, yeah, this is her last year here. And I'm like, okay, well, like what hospital takes over? And they're like, yeah, there isn't one. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like it's just like there's no pickup for like that.
Continuation.
It's like they turn 22 and they go into the abyss. Like I don't know if it's because in the past there was a lot less individuals and a lot of them went to residential. Now like you, even if you want to choose that, there's not enough. There wouldn't be enough of them. So they have like these weird little pockets of like children or adults like my daughter that there's just nothing. Like a day hab's adequate to give her something to do during the day. Like, but it's certainly not therapy. It's certainly not, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's certainly not helping her learn. It's certainly not helping
Not
her
helping her
with
do more.
communication, like, and all these things that she still needs because, like, she's 28, but we just took her to Sesame Street Place this weekend. I don't know. I'm always like, well, what do they think happens to people when they turn 22? Like, they still exist. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I think if you can find an advocate, we really are back to the Minnesota thing. We are blessed in Minnesota to have had the supports from the Department of Human Services that we have at the state level and the county level, because they could do the same thing. They could say, we're not interested in funding this, but you know, year over year, they've tried to fund. Now, I always say we need more money. There's not enough. You know, we can't pay people
there's
minimum.
never enough.
You know, to have the service, to deliver the services when they can make more flipping burgers, right?
Right.
So, you know, there's got to be more resources for these families, but we are so blessed in Minnesota to have what we have. And I'm just wondering if there's an advocacy organization, Kim, where you are, or someone at the department, if, you know, then charge of
Diane
medical.
wants to scream, call the ARC.
Yeah,
What do you
right,
do?
exactly. Yes. Something, is there an autism society in Kim and where you are?
Yeah, like, and she does have a caseworker, but like the caseworker does everybody who's 22 and up. So it's like, I
Oh,
don't,
wow.
And I was told by a social worker that like she gets a stipend. We've never gotten a stipend. It's not much. It's like 500 a year. It's not like
But
anything
still,
crazy, but but why don't we have that information? Like, why isn't that information
Mhm.
relayed to us? And they're starting waivers for adults, which they did not have at all before. They only had them up till age 9. But like, I have no idea, like, where, like, how you access them, like what you need in order to get onto one. Like, she obviously has the day program, which is paid through her state insurance. So like, obviously we do have that benefit because that's obviously not cheap. It's so overwhelming. Like, I can't even, and I'm not like, I have a blog, I run a daycare. Like, I'm not like someone who like doesn't understand things, but even to me, it's so overwhelming to even like, who do I call? I don't know who to call. And then I'm just like, I just don't deal with it, I guess. And I probably at some point should.
well, having the
Yeah,
energy,
it's just
the knowledge and the time. I mean, when you've already got so much more on, it shouldn't be this hard. That's the sad part. And I have to do some more thinking on resources, but I think at the federal, it has to come from the federal level
Yeah.
at some point in time.
yeah.
Well, I think that's what's so cool about Fraser, and like that's why I was saying like the video or whatever is like. I mean, we have
That idea.
places in Colorado, and there's definitely people trying to do things. But I just love the fact that you guys do exist, and you're an example of be like, this is what's possible. So look what they're doing. And, you know, I feel like what we've run into a lot when talking to people about these things, like the people who are trying really hard to do different things, they run into so many roadblocks and it just feels impossible, and maybe not the education or the helps there. So just showing like, hey, they did this. So maybe other places can get to this place. And I mean, I know there's states that are so far behind and even doing anything at all, but I feel like it could be more common.
Remember when we had Jess Ronnie on? She is a friend of ours, Diane, who has a son with significant needs, and she has developed a plan to buy a farm and to make the farmstead home into like choosing his roommates and kind of creating a pooled resources group home.
Yeah, agriculture, create them some jobs and all of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So she was discussing with us, like, you know, mom to mom, there is nobody coming to save you. If you can build a plan, share that plan, and then go to government and go to the people and show them, like, this is what I have to create. This is what my goal is.
Right.
Nobody is going to come and develop a plan as good as yours that they can just fund. And at a certain point, when your state has lesser services than anybody else available, maybe if there was this Fraser model that people could take to, you know, have those grants written or whatever, it feels like the map that you guys have developed is so impactful. But if you could design it from startup, all the things that you've learned since 1935, you know, like all of that.
To tell you who those things came from. It didn't come from me.
Yeah.
These things came from you all. These ideas to start an employment program was a group of parents said, we need this, Diane. Another group were group homes. We have to have residential. These were parents who came forward and said, Fraser wouldn't be where it is today without the voice of these parents, all of our parents. Because we listen to them and we say, oh, you know, if we can't find that resource for you in the community, then we need to do this. So it's being able to, again, listen to what, you know, not dictate, well, this is what you need. What parents need to drive this, just like it with Mrs. Fraser. Those parents drove those programs. They're the ones that told her, this is what we want. We want music therapy. We want this. That's why we had what we had. We started the group homes because those parents asked for it at Fraser.
Which is so cool that you guys could, because so many parents, I feel like, are asking or looking, searching for that, because like our friend Jess, like we know so many parents that are starting group type homes and all these things. And it's so cool that you guys are there to help them facilitate that and have like the resources. And I also just want to say, like, another really cool thing is you guys are creating jobs in the mental health realm, which I know a lot of states are really trying to concentrate on, with a lot of mental health issues going on in our country and the lack of mental health services. So I also think that's so cool that you guys are creating those opportunities and jobs.
And jobs for neurodiverse people, which is also such a need, right?
Absolutely. And, you know, so many of our neurodiverse friends don't need services. They need opportunity. They don't
Oh,
need
God.
treatment. They need opportunity.
Put
So
that on a
that's the other
t-shirt.
thing. Yeah, that's the other thing we're doing. We're trying to respect where they are and say, you know, we're here for you, but we're not pushing treatment on you. You don't need that. You're special because of who you are and the gifts you bring. Let's
Oh,
I was
maximize-
running from the other room to say Rachel's gonna make a t-shirt.
Here's another t-shirt. Diane, I need you to tell the people about Give Them Kel.
Oh, okay. So I come from a philosophy that culture eats strategy every day, not just for breakfast, but for lunch and dinner. I think Peter Drucker said it for dinner, and I'm going, no, all meals, culture eats strategy. You can have the best strategy, but if you have a lousy culture, you're not going to deliver great outcomes.
Right.
So I started seeing a few years ago and during COVID, people getting very angry. And I don't know if you all see it, but I mean, on the roads, road rage more increased. I mean, anxiety increased, depression. I mean, just people are just angry at the world. And so facing some of this myself, I said, well, what would Mrs. Fraser do? I mean, who are we as a society within Fraser community? And I said, instead of give them hell, give them Cal, kindness, empathy, love, and learning. So I do believe there's no place for hate in the work that we do. There's none. And there's no place for being judgmental. I mean, there's no place. We have sometimes a parent that gets really angry with us. And I think about that parent and I say, I'd be angry too. I get you.
Yeah.
You have the right to be angry. But try to also understand we're all in this together. We're trying to do our best. So give us grace, give us some love. Let us learn from you how we can be better. And so give us Cal. And so that's the philosophy I've been using. We trademarked this, give them Cal. And
I love it.
And I think
so I can't be the one to make you the t-shirt, but I might send you a graphic on email later.
So, but it's an important philosophy. You can't, I really believe you can't be in the service industry, which I consider us in, and be a mean-spirited person. This is about our clients and making sure they're getting what they need, and it needs to be delivered in a kind, caring way.
I love that because it's such a high stress industry. And the parents, like you said, are stressed, and it's so great that you have that perspective because they've probably been through a lot and this is their child and all these things. And then on your guys' end, people do get burnt out. So I think having that reminder of, you know, like, why are we here? You know, we're here to be kind and we're here to help. I love that so much because
I will tell you this, people who adopt that get so much more out of light. I mean, it takes a lot of energy to be angry, a lot of energy. So being, you know, once you adopt that philosophy is I'm going to be kind no matter what the world, no matter what is dealt me, whatever hand I'm dealt, I'm going to be kind, dealing out the cards to others. I'm going to be kind and caring about that.
Plus, it's sort of great to shout out, give them Kel as your personal anthem as you're trying to like make that choice every day.
Give them Kel.
Yeah.
So anyway.
I love that.
Oh. So one of the things I didn't want to leave off is that you would ask me, Rachel, what I wish more parents knew about us.
Oh, look, I skipped a question. Circle back, Diane. Way to go.
No, but let me say what my frustration has been. So when I took over Fraser, we were known for Down syndrome and intellectual disabilities. And Courage, when I was at Courage Center, I ran a therapeutic preschool among other business lines that I ran. And when I left Courage, they closed that preschool down. So we took on at Fraser School all the kids with CP and kids who were tube fed and physical disabilities and everything, and expanded the mission from intellectual disabilities to physical disabilities as well. Then when Children's Hospital came to us and asked us to take over the autism program, and no one else would take it in the state, and it was a tiny little program at that time, we said, yes, we need to do this. So I thought, in my great wisdom, looking back, maybe not, I thought that, you know, everyone knows that I would mention who we are and they would say, oh, I know who you are. You're Fraser School and you serve children with Down syndrome. I go, no, not really. We're autism too. Not just Fraser School, but we're also autism. And we're doing all these great programs in autism. So we've done such a great job promoting our autism work that parents don't realize we do a lot of other things too.
Right.
Trauma-informed care. We do fetal alcohol syndrome. We have a large comprehensive mental health program, but our sweet spot truly is where disability meets mental health, no matter what that disability is or that mental health issue, where those two come together. No one else in the state of Minnesota knows that. People know disability, sure, but they don't know mental health. Or they'll know mental health, but they don't know disability. This is where we really shine, is in that niche of providing those services for individuals with complex co-occurring disorders all the way through their lifespan. That is where we really have a niche that no one else does like we do. So that's what I want. And then people think, who are you, Fraser School? And I'll go, no, but we've got employment services, housing services, specialty healthcare services, psychiatry. I rattled this whole thing off, and people look at me and go, I thought you just served children. I didn't even know you did adults. So big message to get out and then I'm really trying to get out there that families need to know we are a lot more than children, and we're a lot bigger than, not that autism is important. It's key to what we do in many areas, but we also do a lot more.
Well, you are welcome to come here anytime and tell the tale, because Diane, we just really want people to know that there is the thing that they're dreaming of is happening in slices and pieces all over this country and others. And, by banding together, by giving them Kel, there's a way through this life where,
Absolutely.
I don't know, I realize that we live in Minnesota and that that is such a privilege, but I just know that there's got to be a takeaway from all of this experience in Osceola, where we used to be, for people that have less access. I'm grateful to bring your message to our listeners, and I'm serious that we would have you back to tell you about our ideas or to listen to yours whenever you'd like.
Or when you want to go national, we're all here.
Yeah, right.
Well, international, we've got Canada.
Or international, Jamie.
Listen, if I can ever help you, I've dedicated my life to this, and I don't regret 1 minute of it. So if I can help you all in any way, I would tell you to do this. Go on our website and copy what we're doing. www.fraser.org. Take it to your legislature and show them, look at all these things. It's all there right on our website. And we're going to improve it with videos and other things. But I love your idea of creating a video for the legislature, others in other states, so that people can really see what it really looks like day to day. That's a cool idea. But I wish there were more. I feel sad that there's not more that we can do in some of these other communities. It's heartbreaking, because these children don't get their lives back when they're little like this. Invest as much as we can in our kids before they become 40, 50. It's really key to put as many resources as we can towards they're allowing them to live to the fullest of their potential, is what I always say. For everyone, that's different.
Well, and that's the thing, I think we all want to shout to, as parents, is our kids have potential and they can contribute to society. We just have to give them the opportunity to.
Absolutely.
Have to be just taking tax money and stuff that people are worried about. They can be contributing too, and that's
absolutely absolutely
true.
Well,
I think too, I spoke to somebody, they're like, when you think of adult services, you're an adult a lot longer than you're a child. I mean, I think if this is what it's like here, what's it like in these rural states that don't even have.
Yeah, where I'm from hillbilly land in southeastern Ohio, Ohio University undergrad. We're talking down in Hocking Hills Valley. There's nothing down there. And it's very, very sad to see these kids, because they don't get diagnosed. So they go until they're adults, and then someone says, I think you might have autism, or, another disorder. And it's sad. It's very sad to see, because that life is lost because they didn't get the services that could have helped them improve to the best of their abilities. And that's a lost life.
Yeah.
And I don't know how we fix that other than more funding, because I just don't know how, other than the fact that I will leave you with this message. Mrs. Fraser truly believed that. She always said she would be nothing without her parents, and with parents who believed in her and believed in the mission and had faith in the work that she was doing. And they were the driving force behind her. Without them, she said she would be nothing. She would not start any programs, because all these ideas came from them. So keep keep up the great ideas. Miracles happen. You'd be surprised how things, an idea will take root and a funder will say, I'll fund that for you. I mean, we had that happen last week. We were looking at a specialty program. I'll tell you a little secret at this point in time. It's probably not going to be a little secret, but we're looking at opening a sensory room at the airport.
Oh, it's awesome.
Minneapolis, St. Paul Airport, Terminal 1 and Terminal 2. And we just had a donor who said, I might just fund that.
Oh, I love that. Congratulations.
So, it's that kind of thing but again, talk about what you need. And, sometimes things happen.
Yeah.
Why isn't there a dang sensory room in the airport? Good for you.
Yeah. Well, we've got,
we just went to
we're in the sports arenas, why not the airport? Now we're working with dental offices, hair salons. Now there's a program you guys might think about doing, helping these families with sensory issues. And a group of parents in other states have been starting these. Fraser's doing Minnesota. So, but other states don't have programs like this.
So great. Well, we're right here when you need a dose of Atta Girl. And we are so grateful. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you so much. All of you. Call me if you need me. I'm easy to find. Give them help.
You need a campaign manager. I'm here for you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Talk Like a Mother Parenting Autism podcast. If you are enjoying our podcast, make sure to rate and review us wherever you listen. And if you'd like to support us, you can become a subscriber. Just check out the description of this episode. Give us a follow on Facebook and Instagram for more content, and we'll see you next time.